Or 2, 1:17 a.m. GMT, Network Operations Center detects anomaly. Transatlantic cable TAT-14 loses carrier signal between United Kingdom and United States. Standard fault isolation procedures initiate. Backup routing activates automatically. Traffic redistributes across remaining cable infrastructure. Nothing indicates catastrophic cascade approaching. Then second cable fails. Then third. Within 90 seconds, 7 major undersea fiber optic systems simultaneously lose connectivity. 95% of data traffic between Europe and North America goes dark. This is global conflict room, where global war decisions are made. 02:19 a.m. Emergency protocols activate across continental network infrastructure. Internet service providers detect massive packet loss. Financial institutions lose connection to American trading systems. Cloud services relying on transatlantic data synchronization fail. Military communication networks switch to satellite backup channels. NATO integrated command systems experience degraded connectivity. European Central Bank cannot communicate with Federal Reserve. Stock exchanges postpone opening procedures. The digital infrastructure supporting modern economy collapses in less than 3 minutes. Global economic impact begins immediately, despite most civilians remaining unaware. 02:24 a.m. Brussels time. European Commission Cybersecurity Center convenes crisis session. Initial assessment rules out software failure due to simultaneous impact across independent systems. Hypothesis shifts to coordinated physical attack on cable infrastructure. Maritime tracking data requested for areas surrounding cable routes. NATO military intelligence receives notification. SHAPE headquarters initiates investigation protocols. Cyber defense experts analyze attack vectors. Physical infrastructure security teams review subsea cable protection measures. The speed of coordination reflects years of planning for exactly this scenario, despite public assumptions of invulnerability. 02:41 a.m. Washington time. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency notifies White House Situation Room. 7 transatlantic cables severed in deep water locations between 1,000 and 3,000 meters depth. Damage points separated by hundreds of kilometers. Simultaneous failure pattern indicates deliberate coordinated action. Only state-level actors possess capability for deep ocean cable sabotage operation. Intelligence community begins attribution assessment. Submarine tracking data from North Atlantic reviewed. Satellite imagery of surface vessels in affected areas analyzed. The investigation occurs while economic damage accumulates at $2 billion per hour. What should command do first? A. Intercept. B. Strike back. C. Hold fire. The decision framework proves inadequate for hybrid warfare attack. Intercepting attackers who already completed sabotage serves no purpose. Striking back requires attribution confidence and proportional response determination. Holding fire allows economic damage to continue, while cable repair requires weeks or months. Traditional military response options fail to address the nature of infrastructure warfare, where attack occurs before detection and attribution requires extensive investigation. Global conflict room analysts assess the operation as most sophisticated hybrid attack in history, combining technical capability with strategic timing and operational security. 03:15 a.m. North Atlantic. Oceanographic research vessel Academic Keldysh detected via satellite monitoring in vicinity of cable route 3 days prior. Russian Navy intelligence ship Ivan Kurs tracked near TAT-14 cable corridor during previous week. Deep submergence vehicle console operating in North Atlantic with stated mission of ocean floor research. The vessels possess technical capability for deep water cable access. Operational pattern suggests surveillance and potential sabotage preparation. Historical presence in cable zones, documented but previously assessed as intelligence gathering rather than attack preparation. NATO maritime surveillance failed to recognize sabotage indicators before attack execution. What happens next determines the next decade. So 4:47 a.m., London Stock Exchange postpones opening indefinitely. Frankfurt and Paris exchanges follow identical protocol. Financial institutions cannot execute international transactions without transatlantic data connectivity. Algorithmic trading systems require millisecond latency, impossible through satellite backup. European subsidiaries of American corporations lose access to central databases. Cloud computing services experience catastrophic failure. Manufacturing systems dependent on just-in-time international logistics cannot coordinate shipments. The modern economy's dependence on real-time data connectivity transforms technical failure into systemic crisis. Economic analysts project recession trigger within 72 hours if connectivity remains severed. 05:22 am, NATO North Atlantic Council Emergency Session. Secretary General receives intelligence briefing on vessel tracking and damage assessment. Military committee presents evidence suggesting Russian involvement. Member states debate response options absent definitive proof. International law regarding subsea cable protection proves ambiguous. Cables exist in international waters with limited legal protection framework. Sabotage constitutes hostile act, but not armed attack under traditional definitions. Article 5 consultation occurs, but consensus on invocation remains elusive. The alliance faces challenge of responding to economic warfare without clear military threat, justifying kinetic response, necessary deterrence, or dangerous escalation. The question assumes new dimension in context of hybrid warfare. Deterrence theory developed for nuclear age and conventional military threats. Economic infrastructure attack creates different calculus. How does alliance demonstrate credibility against sabotage without triggering broader conflict? Military response against civilian vessels in international waters creates precedent concerns. Proportional response to cable cutting might involve similar sabotage of Russian infrastructure, descending into tit-for-tat destruction. The strategic framework for managing great power competition in hybrid domain remains underdeveloped relative to kinetic warfare doctrine. So 6:40 a.m. Moscow time, Russian Foreign Ministry issues statement. Communication expresses concern over cable failures affecting global communications. Offers technical assistance for repair operations. Notes Russian vessels conducting legitimate scientific research in international waters. Denies any involvement in infrastructure damage. Characterizes Western accusations as unfounded propaganda. The messaging maintains plausible deniability while signaling awareness of European suspicions. Intelligence analysts assess statement as confirmation of Russian operation through defensive posture and immediate response to unspoken accusations. 07:55 a.m. Emergency Economic Summit. European Central Bank, Bank of England, Federal Reserve coordinate via satellite communication. Agreement reached on emergency liquidity measures. Markets will remain closed until minimum connectivity restored. Currency exchange rates frozen at pre-attack levels. International payment systems suspended except critical infrastructure and humanitarian transactions. The unprecedented economic intervention attempts to prevent panic and systemic collapse, while cable repair proceeds. Economists project immediate measures by maximum 1 week before broader economic consequences become unmanageable. Repair timeline estimates range from 3 weeks to 2 months, depending on equipment availability and weather conditions. Which system activates first in a missile alert? A. Radar. B. Satellites. C. Command link. Modern military early warning integrates multiple sensor networks. Subsea infrastructure protection operates differently. Cable monitoring systems detect signal loss, but cannot prevent physical damage. Maritime surveillance tracks vessel movements, but cannot distinguish research from sabotage preparation. The infrastructure vulnerability reflects prioritization of capacity and cost efficiency oversecurity in commercial cable networks. Military systems maintain redundancy through satellite communications and alternative routing. Civilian economy lacks equivalent protection. The attack exploits asymmetric dependence where European digital infrastructure requires transatlantic connectivity, while attackers face minimal comparable vulnerability. 09:30 AM Submarine Tracking Analysis. Intelligence Community Correlation identifies pattern. Russian submarines Belgorod and Kazan operating in North Atlantic during relevant time frame. Both vessels equipped with deep diving capabilities and specialized equipment. Operational areas correspond to cable damage locations within acceptable margin for navigational uncertainty. Signal intelligence detected burst transmissions consistent with submarine communication protocols. The evidence proves circumstantial, but cumulatively compelling. Attribution confidence reaches 87% for Russian military operation. NATO intelligence sharing distributes assessment to member states. If you follow global conflict analysis, type GCR. 11:20 AM, NATO Military Committee debate. Options presented range from diplomatic protest to kinetic retaliation. Option 1, public attribution and economic sanctions. Option 2, covert retaliation against Russian infrastructure. Option 3, enhanced protection for remaining cable infrastructure with rules of engagement, authorizing defensive action. Option 4, direct military response against identified Russian vessels and submarines. Each option carries distinct escalation profile. Public attribution without military response might appear weak. Covert retaliation risks exposure and equivalence. Enhanced protection prevents future attacks, but does nothing for current crisis. Direct military action against submarines risks broader conflict, potentially including nuclear dimension. The decision requires balancing immediate crisis response against long-term strategic competition management. 13:44 p.m. Cable ship deployment. 4 specialized repair vessels begin transit toward damage locations. Journey time 3 to 7 days, depending on departure points and weather. Each vessel carries limited cable replacement inventory. Deepwater repairs require precise positioning and specialized equipment. Optimal weather windows necessary for operations at depth. The technical challenges mean fastest possible repair timeline extends 3 weeks minimum. European economy faces prolonged degradation regardless of diplomatic or military responses. The infrastructure attack achieves strategic effect through technical exploitation rather than military force. 15:17 p.m. Washington announcement. President addresses nation and European allies. Statement confirms intelligence assessment of deliberate sabotage. Attributes attack to Russian military operation with high confidence. Announces comprehensive sanctions package targeting Russian technology sector and financial institutions. Commits American resources to cable repair acceleration. Stops short of military response, but warns of severe consequences for future infrastructure attacks. Message emphasizes alliance solidarity and economic resilience. The response attempts to demonstrate resolve while avoiding kinetic escalation. European leaders coordinate parallel statements, creating unified diplomatic front. 17:40 p.m. Moscow response. Russian government rejects accusations as baseless. Claims Western infrastructure failure demonstrates technological inadequacy. Suggests European dependence on American digital systems creates vulnerability. Offers bilateral agreements for future cable protection cooperation. The messaging combines denial with implicit acknowledgement through defensive posture. Intelligence analysts assess Russian leadership satisfaction with operation outcome. Strategic objective of demonstrating European vulnerability and alliance tension achieved without military confrontation. Economic damage inflicted at minimal cost and risk. 19:25 p.m. Initial economic assessment. European GDP projected to contract 3.7% in quarter. if connectivity remains degraded beyond 2 weeks. Financial sector losses accumulating at exponential rate. Manufacturing disruptions ripple through supply chains. Unemployment claims spike as companies implement emergency cost reduction. Consumer confidence plummets on uncertainty about banking access and digital services. The economic consequences exceed any conventional military attack, short of full-scale invasion. Modern economy's digital dependence creates vulnerability, where infrastructure attack achieves strategic effect without kinetic warfare. Global Conflict Room tracks cascading failures across multiple domains. 2250 p.m. Enhanced Infrastructure Protection. NATO naval forces deploy to North Atlantic cable corridors. Submarines assigned patrol areas around critical infrastructure. Maritime surveillance intensifies. Rules of engagement authorize defensive action against vessels threatening cables. The military deployment occurs after attack completion, but signals determination to prevent recurrence. Effectiveness depends on persistent presence and willingness to engage threats before sabotage occurs. The challenge involves maintaining costly protection indefinitely against adversaries who can choose timing and location for future attacks across thousands of kilometers of subsea infrastructure. Day 2 assessment. Satellite communication bandwidth insufficient for normal economic activity. Financial markets remain closed. International trade severely constrained. Critical services maintain operation through degraded connectivity. Non-essential internet services unavailable or extremely slow. European society experiences first sustained digital infrastructure failure. Civilians accustomed to instant global connectivity confront fragility of systems previously assumed invulnerable. Social media erupts with speculation and conspiracy theories. Government communications emphasize temporary nature of disruption and ongoing repair efforts. Day 5, cable repair operations begin. Weather conditions acceptable at 2 damage sites. Specialized vessels position over severed cables. Deepwater remotely operated vehicles descend to ocean floor. The repair process requires locating cable ends, retrieving segments, splicing new cable sections, and testing connectivity. Each site requires 4 to 9 days, depending on complications. Sequential repairs mean full restoration, potentially 8 weeks distant. European economy operates in crisis mode throughout repair period. Alternative routing through Asian cables provides partial connectivity, but insufficient capacity for normal operations. The prolonged disruption forces fundamental questions about infrastructure resilience and digital dependency. What decision would you make in that room? Was military response warranted despite attribution uncertainty and escalation risks? Should NATO have prioritized infrastructure protection before attack occurred? How should alliance respond to hybrid warfare that achieves strategic effects without armed attack? Who bears responsibility for vulnerability that enabled catastrophic disruption? The subsea cable sabotage scenario demonstrates modern warfare evolution, where critical infrastructure attack creates strategic effects exceeding conventional military options. Adversaries exploit technical vulnerabilities and legal ambiguities. Attribution challenges delay response while damage accumulates. Economic consequences dwarf military losses. The scenario reveals how great power competition extends to domains where traditional deterrence frameworks prove inadequate, and where infrastructure dependence creates asymmetric vulnerabilities, enabling devastating attacks below threshold, triggering military response. Subscribe to Global Conflict Room, inside the room where history changes.